Hey, I think we're up and running. So if you jump on live, just so you know, you're happy. I'm happy to have you comment. I am going to have to keep on point here. So I'm not going to necessarily monitor comments because you might have really good comments and I'll check them out later. And I appreciate everyone's input. I appreciate people who watch our channel. Some really good things coming out from Friday's show. We talked about some difficult things. It was a difficult day for me, a difficult night as well with what's happened in my family. But I tried to be as truthful with what I was saying about everything and how I felt about the Aaron Rodgers situation. One thing I would say to everybody is that, I was a little emotional for sure. And maybe said some things a little too emphatically. And I did overstep, and I want to apologize to three individuals for sure. I want to apologize to Danica Patrick. Yes, even her. Shailene Woodley, and also Olivia Munn for indicating that they were partially responsible for Aaron Rodgers kind of doing some of the questionable things he's done. We all own our own decisions, mistakes, and this behavior, these things Aaron Rodgers has done, the fault lies solely with him. So apologies to you three ladies. This is all up to Rodgers, Mr. Rodgers. Okay. Now, oftentimes we do give opinions, a lot of opinions on Haven Rose. Today, I'm putting on my journalistic hat and I'm going to go through some points, things that Aaron Rodgers has said. Now, I may interject at times with some additional things. I'll try to do that as little as possible. But these are things that he said that you as a Packers fan have to fully take in and understand and think about and think, is this, what does that mean to you? How does that make you feel about him being the Packers quarterback, stuff like that? I also wanted to clarify really quickly. Yes, I am pro-vaccine, and I was disappointed he didn't take the vaccine, but my position about being really upset with him and not wanting him on the team anymore has nothing to do with whether he took the vaccine or not. This is not about whether he chose to take the vaccine or not. This is about his behavior, his lack of respect, and his open deceitfulness to the fan base, to other players, and around the league, and just in general. And the reasons behind his actions too, just as big of an issue for me. Okay, let's take a quick, we're going to go through some things now. Okay. I've got my notes too, Aaron. I made some notes. I went through and looked at a number of different things. First off, if you take a look at the August 26th press conference, where Aaron Rodgers said he was, quote, immunized, there's some interesting things there. Okay. A couple things to consider. Okay. First off, Ryan Wood is asked the question about whether he was vaccinated and how he felt about vaccines, or his position on vaccines, something similar to that. Sorry, I'm not quoting Ryan Wood here, but it was the question about whether Rodgers was vaccinated. As soon as the word vaccine was said in the question, Aaron Rodgers started nodding his head like this. Okay. Then, while still nodding, said, I've been immunized. Okay. So Ryan Wood was asking about vaccines. Aaron Rodgers is nodding his head. Yes. Then chooses his words carefully and says immunized, because he clearly had that prepared that he was going to use that word when asked about vaccines. But the nodding of your head, yes, is another indicator and another way of agreeing with what's being said or asked, and another form of the misinformation from Aaron Rodgers through that body language. I'm sorry, it's true. Then he goes on to say, while still nodding, shortly after that, asked about that, he says, oh, there's been a lot of talk about it. Some people have been vaccinated, guys have been vaccinated, guys are unvaccinated. He says also, quote, I'm not going to judge those guys. So, and then he goes on Pat McAfee and says he never lied. I understand he's a smart guy, right? Uses his words very carefully in a number of ways. That's lying, bro. Sorry. Okay, let's talk about a couple of other points that are factual pieces here, right? Again, trying to stay on the facts. Aaron Rodgers didn't wear masks during press conferences or after games when interacting with other players. Now, I understand he said he was tested every day. Okay, tested every day. So in his mind, that meant he didn't have the virus for, I guess, the whole day and evening and after the game. Now, I don't know all the full information on how quickly the virus, if you get it, can develop in your system. I don't know how quickly, if you're tested every day, if that means you are good for 24 hours. But I also know that people are different and people's immune systems and viral loads can be different based on your body, based on how you react to things. So I'm just saying there's certainly a chance that even though you tested in the morning, you could potentially have the virus, and you're talking right in Kyler Murray's face or other players who think you're vaccinated based on what you said to the media, in front of the media, and the way you've acted publicly throughout. Okay. The other thing is Aaron Rodgers is a very smart guy, right? Because he said it multiple times. He knew and knows that vaccinated players only have to test every 2 weeks. Okay. And that he also knows that vaccinated players and people in football, or people that he's around, can still get and transmit COVID. But still, he didn't wear masks after games. Then he talked about wanting to do everything he could to protect himself and his teammates. But if he knows and understands, because he's smart enough and he understands this, and he's done loads and loads of research and talked to all these medical people, that and actually pointed blame that he probably got COVID from a vaccinated individual. He had to say that as well, which again is very misleading and also downplaying the effectiveness of vaccines, but also pointing blame when he has no factual basis on, he doesn't know where he got the virus. He doesn't know. But he quickly pointed that out, which is another issue that I have with what he said and how he said it. But he knows all of that. Yet he still didn't take extra precautions because he didn't want to look bad in public. He didn't want to be questioned about it. He didn't want the heat for it. He called it a witch hunt. He called it other things. He called it the NFL trying to shame players, not safety protocols to try to keep everyone around you as healthy as possible, try to mitigate the spread of the virus as much as possible, and was as reasonable as possible. And a simple thing to do that is wearing your mask when you're encountering other people whenever you possibly can. After games, on the sideline, in press conferences, if you're already doing it all around the building all the time anyway, when you go out in public, like he said, whenever he goes in public, he wears his mask. What's the big deal, man? Should also do it then and those other times. Okay. Yes, his teammates knew. He said his teammates knew. The NFL was fully aware he was unvaccinated. His teammates were, the Packers were, organization. And I'm not even going to go into what the NFL should have been doing and what the Packers should have been doing. That's a whole nother subject. This is about Aaron Rodgers, his conduct, and what he's shown us as a person. But other teams didn't know. Other players on other teams, if they just saw the press conference, if they heard him saying, I've been immunized, and they didn't have that information that the whole Packers organization had because he didn't want that out publicly, then that's not fair to them at all. And as an aside from that, this is again where Aaron Rodgers, I know he says a lot of great things. And for years and years and years, I have defended this guy. I have believed in him being a good person. I like a lot of the things he did publicly. But there's a lot of hypocrisy here. And there's a lot of things that have come to light that should make us pause about Aaron Rodgers, which he talked about pausing. I'll get into that too. But when a person who constantly talks about being a good human, about showing love and respect, portraying that, and then potentially exposing other people and players on other teams who don't have the same information that the people inside your team have about your status, is that being a good human? Is that showing love and respect? There's some questions for you to think about. Okay, let's continue. All right. Then this person who has already shown to be very careful of what he says publicly and the way he says it, and basically scoot around lying, but really lying, but saying it's technically not a lie, has also then told us and been proven to in order to avoid controversy or to avoid conflict, to not want some of these things to be public. He then came out in his big, long thing. And I know I talk for a long time sometimes too, most of the time on our show. I get it. We're long-winded. We're trying to examine things. This is an exam. Then he came out and claimed, and again, this is not about him not taking the vaccines. This is about the information he's given. And we have to consider the source now. And I'm just going about how he gave the information. Okay, claimed he could not take either of the mRNA vaccines because he has an allergy to the mRNA vaccines. Didn't say what that allergy was. Didn't say what that ingredient was. Just so that he has an allergy to one of the ingredients in the mRNA vaccines. Now, a person who we just learned said all the things publicly that he did, misled people, I would say lied. So would a lot of people. We're just supposed to take his word for that. Okay. I'm not sure I can take his word anymore. His word doesn't mean the same to me after some of this stuff that's come out. Think about what that means for you. Then, okay. So then he's coming out and then he's talking, then he says, okay, well, I know those were out. So then there was the J&J, Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And I'm going to quote you, Aaron Rodgers, because when you quote somebody, you should actually have the proper quote, which I'll touch on later too. Just another kind of annoying part about what he did during this thing, this whole Pat McAfee thing. He said, quote, I have heard of multiple people who had adverse events around getting the J&J. Can you be more specific? Multiple people? What does that mean? That could be as few as 2 out of millions and millions and millions who have taken that vaccine. And again, if he didn't want to take the vaccine, just come out and say, I don't want to take the vaccine. Don't give me all this other stuff for reasons why you didn't take the vaccine or one of the vaccines. But instead of him coming out and saying, I didn't trust this, I didn't trust that, I didn't want to take the vaccines. Instead of him coming out and saying that, which is, you would infer based on some of these claims and the way he talked about it, that he didn't want to take the vaccines. And that's his choice in our country. Okay. But then own it. Say it. Don't give us all these BS reasonings and excuses and try to save face and try to avoid any conflict and try to avoid having to answer some tougher questions. But that's what he did. Okay, I continue on. Because then he also said, okay, so multiple people. Now, it's a small percentage. It's been studied. There are a bunch of studies. Millions of people around the world have taken that vaccine. Very few times there's been issues. Not to say that there haven't been, but it's, again, you kind of weigh, okay, do I have some adverse effects? Do I take the vaccine? That's your choice. I don't want to get further into that. I want to stay on Aaron Rodgers, what he said, and is this credible to you or not? I'm presenting you information. Then he went and said, well, in April, the J&J shot got pulled for clotting issues. So another reason why he couldn't, take it, rather than just saying, I didn't want to take the vaccines, he's got to give all these reasons to try to justify so you don't question him, so you can feel better about him, so he looks better. That's really what this all points to. All of it. Okay. The clotting issues that he referenced in such a big, scary way without giving any other context about numbers, about anything else, 6 females had the clotting issues of all of the people that took it. Did Aaron Rodgers tell you that? No. Credit to Young Turks for helping point me in that direction and pointing that fact out, because I didn't know that off the top of my head. I'm not that smart, but I am a pretty good journalist in terms of listening to people talk, quoting things that make sense and are important. And that's what I'm giving you. Some additional quotes from Aaron Rodgers. Then he just flat out went and dismissed the vaccines. Okay. So again, after highlighting multiple people had adverse effects, I've got an allergy to mRNA, multiple people had adverse effects. And then in April, the J&J shot got pulled for clotting issues. Okay. After really playing those up, big problems there, right? To point where one guy I saw said, well, it sounds like Aaron Rodgers could have had, he could have, the vaccines could have killed him. So you see why he didn't want to take it. Really? Okay. Then he just flat out dismisses it and says, my options became, okay, what can I do? And this is a quote. Okay, what can I do to protect myself and my teammates if there's not one of the big 3 options for me? So you see what he does there, right? Gave you all of his excuses rather than just coming out and saying it, and being upfront. And then after giving you his excuses, well, there just weren't any options. But then I thought, what can I do to protect myself and my teammates? Like, he really cares about that. So again, he's bringing in words, bringing you in. He's bringing you in because he talks in a calm way, right? Acts like he's so laid back and so cool. It's just so disappointing. And in a couple of these cases, like really playing up the scary stuff about vaccines or making people, seem like these issues or things were scarier than they were, that could have affected some other people. There are people that follow this guy, listen to this guy, are huge fans of him, think he's the smartest guy in the world or one of them or whatever. So when you have that platform and that responsibility, these are more than just irresponsible statements. These are dangerous statements. And on top of it, you yourself are mostly seeming like you're doing this because you're just trying to save face. You're trying to prevent the conflict from coming your way. Otherwise, why didn't you just say it in the first place and say, I haven't been vaccinated. I didn't want to take the vaccine for various reasons. You didn't have to get into all that. But when Ryan Wood asked you, you could have said, I looked into this homeopathic option and I've tried to protect myself as best as I can with that. Yeah, it would have been a little bit at that time, but That would have blown over, not been a big deal. People would have actually probably looked into this homeopathic option. And maybe for some of the folks that couldn't get the vaccine that really wanted to, that might have helped them be better protected against COVID. And then if they got it, recover quicker. I don't know. But none of us knew that because he didn't come out and say it. Really disappointing. Okay. And dangerous. So that stuff is not great. But then it got much worse. Then this is where a number of things kind of turned, in addition to just not respecting people. He talked about how he just the rules didn't make sense to him. So the ones that didn't make sense to him, he didn't want to do and chose not to do it. I mean, and that he didn't sign a piece of paper, agreeing to all these rules. Well, your union did, as other people have pointed out and said. You had a choice. You work within the construct of the NFL, a business. You work for the Green Bay Packers. Yes, you've done a lot for them. Yes, you bring a lot to the Packers. Yes, you're an outstanding football player and quarterback. But you're not the commissioner of the NFL. So you can petition the rules, you can question them. But when the NFL says, sorry, these are the rules, you have two options. You play within the NFL or you don't play within the NFL. Not, I don't like some of these rules, so I'm just not going to follow them. Not an option. Should not have been an option. Okay. Another thing that was concerning and an issue for me, and again, how Aaron Rodgers kind of speaks and talks and goes around in a lot of these circles with things now, which is similar to someone else who's done that in the public eye in the last several years. Again, not a political statement, just an observation. He claimed to not be political. He claimed, politics is a sham and I don't give a shit about the left or the right or what they do with me and with this and what I'm going to say. But after claiming that and saying it, then he completely contradicts himself and then says the problem with this is that it's so political and health should not be political. Okay, so he says that. And then after saying that, he comes back with talking about Trump, talking about the vaccines, he says, quote, when Trump promoted the vaccines, what did the left say? I'm talking about every member, quote, I'm talking about every member of the left. A direct quote. So he says the left, after just saying how the problem with it is it's so political and health should not be political. And then he brings in political. And not only that, one side of the political he's pointing the finger at, and not just one side, he says, quote, I'm talking about every member of the left. And this is what he said every member of the left said. This is a quote from Aaron Rodgers. He said, what did every member of the left say? Don't trust the vaccine. Still quoting him here. Don't trust the vaccine. Don't take the vaccine. You're going to die from the vaccine. He is saying the left said this. He's saying every member of the left said this during the time Trump was promoting the vaccines. Every member of the left, according to Aaron Rodgers, don't trust the vaccine. Don't take the vaccine. You're going to die from the vaccine. That is false. That is not a true statement. You may have heard some people say that. You did not hear every member of the left, whatever that means. Are you just talking about left-leaning political parties? Are you talking about the general public? What are you talking about? First off. But I guarantee you, not every person in the left said you're going to die from the vaccine while Trump was president. said by Aaron Rodgers. After saying the problem is politics and health should not be political. Then he continues and says, and then what happened? Biden wins and everything flips. And then he says, shouldn't that initially give you a little bit of pause and go, hold on a second. Now, there are a few other things that happened in that time, Aaron, that you just omitted, because rather than talking about facts and time and what happened, you decided to make this a political narrative for yourself about what it was like under Trump and what it was like after Biden wins. And again, giving you rationale and reasoning for not trusting the vaccines. So it all comes back to you again. You, Aaron. Okay. Sorry. It's hard for me to not do this. I'm so disappointed in this man. I was a huge fan of his, a huge fan for a very long time. And I defended with him. I argued with my brother. I argued with other people that were pointing out issues. And damn, I have been proven wrong about Aaron Rodgers and his character, a guy who talks about character so much. And this is the character he displays. It's so, it hurts as a fan of the Packers and of his before that I was. Anyway, I can't lose myself in that. Stick to the facts. Okay. Also during that time, between early on when Trump was like wanted the vaccines done quickly, which is okay. Yeah, you want them done as quickly as you can, but you got to go through some of the scientific trials. You got to test. You got to do the stuff that had to be done. Now they did that as quickly as they could. And it was amazing. But you know also what happened between the time Trump was championing the vaccines early or late summer and into the early fall. And also by the time that Biden actually got into office, time happened. And they were able to do a bunch of those clinical trials and reviews and get results and test and find out more about how the vaccines worked with people, how they worked, some of the side effects, all that sort of stuff. Time and information was gained during those months, Aaron Rodgers. It was not Donald Trump promotes it, we hate it. Oh, now Biden's the president, now we love it. No. Time and information. Unbelievable how a guy can sit here and talk about politics, say he doesn't want anything to do with it, it's a total sham, health shouldn't be political, say quotes like that, and then come right back and bring it all back to politics and very one-sidedly bring it into politics. Unbelievable. And he has another quote right around there, right after that. Isn't this about health and not politics? You just talked about politics. He needed to be challenged in this setting, and the fact he was completely unchallenged. Man, I love Pat McAfee, but Pat, you got to wake up to this stuff. I know you tried to ask him some questions and he interrupted McAfee. He was like, no, just let me finish. Just let me finish my stuff here that I prepared to say. Then you can ask me a question. Very irritating as well. Like, take a question, bro. If you're going to put yourself in a public format, take a question. Okay. Sorry. Did not mean to get that upset about that, but this complete contradiction and hypocrisy and the lack of good character that it is showing me is really disappointing. And the end result, the end reasoning for what it always comes back to is also hugely disappointing. All right. Then he went on to quote, I told you politics is a sham. He said that. I don't give a crap about either the left or the right and blah, 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 even though he just showed some pretty good signs that he does and brought it up and made it political. And let's talk about some of the other verbiage and some of the other hot button terms that are highly politicized and political based and very one-sided, I might add, that he used again and again in his comments. Cancel culture, woke mob, the left, studies from India, kept referencing the studies from India, which he also was checked on about, the use of ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. India had removed those from their suggested treatments because they determined they don't have any benefit, but it's fine. Kept referencing all those things in his research, 500 pages of research he did. And then also specifically named Trump twice in a very positive way. Talked about ivermectin, Joe Rogan. But this shouldn't be political, Aaron. Man, you needed to be challenged, bro. Okay. And let me just say this. There have been some teammates before I move on, because this last part is more about quoting people and then kind of wrapping up. So there have been some teammates, of course, defending him. Kurt Benkert does a thing with Tom Grassi. Okay. And Kurt Benkert had, really strong things, positive things to say about Aaron Rodgers. And I'm sure Aaron Rodgers has been a very nice guy and a very good teammate to Kurt Benkert. I'm sure, that's great. That's what he should be doing in terms of his interactions with it. The way he talks to him, the way he deals with him, all that stuff. But Kurt Benkert is like going to bat here, hardcore for Aaron Rodgers, slamming Mike Florio. And again, Florio sometimes, he had bad interactions with Rodgers way back when, and sometimes he'll go too far and infer a lot of things based on what Rodgers says, which I think is unfair at times. And I've said that, and I stand by a number of those things in the past that Colin Cowherd has said, Florio has said, some others that are unfair and taking more from what Rodgers said than what he meant or what he did. It's kind of, I acknowledge that they've done that. And I acknowledge that has been the case. And I think it has been unfair to Rodgers at times. And I still feel that way, even after all this. But this is not a situation where people are inferring extra things. This is Aaron Rodgers' words. What he said, what he did, the way he conducted himself. So one question I have, and just something to think about. So Kurt Benkert, how much do you see Aaron Rodgers? I get he's your teammate. I get you're in the quarterback room, but how much do you interact with him? So I understand we treat people, we take people the way they treat us. But how much do we really know people? A number of people, right? Most people in our lives that we interact with infrequently, or, we just don't, maybe it's in a work setting. Maybe they're just, when we see them in that work setting, they're a certain way. And okay, that's great, but maybe they're not always that way. And we all make mistakes and we all say stuff. I do too, all the time. You guys see it almost every week on our show. Stuff I probably shouldn't have said, stuff I was off on. I never claim to be right all the time. I am claiming to be honest, giving you my honest thoughts. But how well does Kurt Benkert really know Aaron Rodgers? He knows Aaron Rodgers is the good teammate. Okay. And that's fine. That's good. Like I said. But then you also just saw Aaron Rodgers present himself in an unchallenged format. And these are all the things he said. No one baited him into saying any of those things. No one baited him into politics. He brought all those things up and identified with a number of things, including calling Joe Rogan now a good friend. Okay. I don't know if Joe Rogan would consider him a good friend, but he tends to like name drop people that are well known and all of a sudden say they're good friends, even though they might not interact very much. I don't know. Anyway, that's a thing he does too, which is kind of weird, but whatever. It's fine. The point I'm getting at here is Kurt Benkert, that's fine. You understand all your personal interactions with him. And I know that builds up some credit with you, like Lucas Patrick was talking about earlier in the week. But did you also see all this? Did you also objectively hear and look at the words, the actions, the way Aaron Rodgers misled people? And are you factoring that in your opinion of the man? Or maybe you're just trying to hang on as the Packers on the Packers team and trying to be a good teammate. And I can respect that. I can. But what I would do is maybe not go to bat for the guy after this is all the stuff that he said and done. Okay, last thing here. Last thing here. Again, yeah, we'll finish up. Oh, I'm sorry. We got one more really important thing to point out. Ben was saying that when I was comparing Rodgers to Trump and calling him Trump 2.0 because of certain things, that I was making it political. It was not. Donald Trump is not political automatically. Donald Trump was a public figure way, way, way before he ever ran for president. Okay. So just because I'm referencing what Donald Trump is like, doesn't mean I'm making it political. So don't give Trump so much credit, my brother. I love you, but stop thinking that Trump runs politics. He doesn't. And also that there was a Trump before he became political Trump. And that same Trump, before he was president, lied, blamed people, dodged responsibility, and spoke way too long in front of cameras and microphones, and in circles, and contradicted himself all the time. So those are the things Aaron Rodgers did. That's why I'm calling him that. All right. And those things happened way before Trump was president. So it's not making it political. It's just an observation comparing him to another person who tends to do those same type of things. All right. Last thing that was, I'm sure, wow. I mean, I know it upset a lot of people in the Black community. Upset me because as a journalist, he acted like he was quoting Martin Luther King, again, to justify his position for bucking the rules. Okay. He explained all the rules. Oh, these rules don't make sense. And all this is so much more difficult. And fine. Some of the rules may not have made sense. They may not have. And I agree with him that some of the things about, between vaccinated players, even though we know that there can be breakthrough cases, vaccinated players only test in every 2 weeks and unvaccinated players testing every day doesn't make sense to me. Or like Ben pointed out the other day, everyone, when you're in close contact, wear a mask. Like everyone should be, not just the unvaccinated players. So I can see some points there. But you're not the commissioner of the NFL, Aaron. You are a player in the NFL. You don't make the rules. Follow the rules. But anyway, one more final justification for him bucking the rules. He made it seem like he was quoting Martin Luther King Jr. Because again, he's bringing it back. He's so smart and so just, right? Connecting himself with an incredible figure in our nation's history who was fighting against injustice. Put himself right next to him there. And then in the process, misquoted him, acted like it was a quote, but it wasn't even close to a quote. Michael Smith read the actual quote that Aaron Rodgers was referencing, sort of, but misreferencing and misrepresenting, which was also written by Martin Luther King Jr. from a jail cell. It was about something completely different. And this guy who really the only thing you can say is why you're making all these justifications when you say you just want to tell your side of the story is to try to make this easier on you. In the end, and also, Aaron, if you're going to quote somebody, freaking quote them. All my quotes that I gave from you today are actual exact quotes. If you're going to quote somebody or act like you're quoting somebody, make sure it's an actual quote. If you're paraphrasing, you paraphrase and you say that so people don't think it's an actual quote. As a journalist, pisses me off. All right, finally, wrap it up. Sorry. In the end, Aaron Rodgers kept trying to play the victim, kept trying to save face. He made it about the vaccines, not his deceptive or reckless behavior. So again, taking away from what he did wrong, distracting you. Again, this sounds familiar, right? Distracting you from what he did wrong by talking so much about the vaccines and why he couldn't take them and justifying that and making it all about the vaccines, which again is turned into a political thing. But rather than focusing on or talking about what he did and how he misled people and how he said he was immunized when asked if he was vaccinated and nodded his head a bunch, like I said before, go back and watch the video. He made it all about these other things. So again, distracting, played up the danger of vaccines, but at the same time, which fuels vaccine hesitancy, but he repeatedly downplayed the effectiveness of the vaccines, which also he made an incredibly dangerous statement. This is the quarterback of the Green Bay Packers. This is the person who's supposed to be the leader of the team. The Packers are giving a crap load of money to. Another reason why I do not want him representing my team, the person. Great player. Done a lot for the team. I understand. But this is another reason. He went out and said and claimed, like I said, claimed that he probably got COVID as a side note, quick, from a vaccinated individual. Again, had to say that. And then also questioned and then said, if the vaccine is so great, then why are people still getting COVID and transmitting COVID and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, and that was a paraphrase at the end, but the first part was actual quoted by him. No one ever claimed the vaccines were going to stop you from getting COVID or transmitting it. They just said it has been proven scientifically to make you better protected against COVID, less likely you will get it. If you get it, I'm sorry, I'm wrong on that. Didn't say you'd be less likely to get it. Said if you would get it, you would be less likely to have strong symptoms or be hospitalized, right? I'm paraphrasing there too, but that is basically the gist. You're better protected with the vaccine from having really bad symptoms or being hospitalized, much less likely for those things to occur. Not that you couldn't get it if you got the vaccine, and no one ever said that, Aaron, but you had to specifically say that again to tear down the vaccines. And is that because you really believe that, are concerned about that? Or is it because it's all coming back to everything else that all comes back to you to help justify your reasoning for not taking a vaccine? And again, this isn't about whether you took the vaccine or not. For me, even though I wish he would have, this is about him taking all of this stuff that is very serious stuff that affects millions and millions of people in a big public format with a big voice and following and fans that love him and people that think he's super smart. And again, saying all this stuff. Why? Because it makes him look better. Because it takes some heat off of him. That's not a team guy. That's not a team leader. Shouldn't be a team captain. And that's not a guy I want on my team, representing the team that I've grown up loving and been a fan of forever. And Bernard, I know you said we're being too hard on him. Look, man, this is about the person. and about what that behavior and things he does and all of this that is shown you avail into the person. When the heat comes, Aaron Rodgers is now deflecting, justifying, pointing fingers at other things, playing up things that are dangerous. And for what? To take a little heat off of himself? Because that's the only thing you can infer here. I'm sorry, man. You look at the rules, you look at the comments, you look at everything that was said, you look at the contradictions and the hypocrisy, and the only thing that adds up, it's not consistent. His thoughts and positions, even in what he said, are not consistent. So then are you only saying it to confuse, distract, and take some of the heat off? That's all I can make of it. And a person that's going to do that when the heat's on you, I don't want you on my team. Packers, I've given you a lot of heat. I apologize for some of it. You still made plenty of mistakes, including your GM, including Mark Murphy. But in this case, you have my full support to do whatever you need to get this guy off our team as soon as you possibly can. And if that just means cutting him, I'm okay with it. Better if we could get something back for him and someone else wants the problem, great. But if it just means cutting him, you won't get any heat from me on that. The only other thing I thought of, and I will end with this, sorry, this came in my head last night, as I was thinking about all this stuff. And the only other thing I can think of is Aaron Rodgers, potentially, could this be a thing? And here, now I'm speculating a little bit. So this is, aside from the journalist part, that was all factual in the quotes I gave you and all that. And time will tell us, right? Time will tell us. But the only way this is bad for us, like really bad for us as Packers fans, is if they let him stay on the team, number one, or if they move on from him or get rid of him or don't get much for him or have to cut him. And then we find out that Aaron Rodgers has just been playing a big game of chess. And this was all some of his ways to get out of Green Bay. I don't know if that's the case, but if we find that out, man, he's not going to be welcome back to Green Bay anytime. Not even like Favre was. I don't think there'll be any repairing. But I'm already the repair for you and I, Aaron. It's the person I've seen. It's ugly. It's selfish. It's eye-opening for me. I was buying all your stuff this whole time. And now I'm thinking back to everything you said. And I don't know what to make of any of it. Make your own decision. Go Pack, go today. Hope they run the heck out of the ball, play good defense, and I hope Jordan Love does well. All right. Take care.